Okay, this lesson is on character development. So by the end of this lesson, you will be able to define round characters, flat characters, protagonists, antagonists, and supporting characters. You'll be able to define characterization and tell me what goes into describing a character, as well as tell me what character development is and its relationship to theme. You will also be able to take all of this information and use it to create one or more characters for a story. So, character types, including round versus flat, main characters, protagonists, antagonists, and supporting characters are all words you need to pay attention to. You also need to be looking out for characterization, including physical description, personality traits, abilities, and history, and finally, character development as you go through this lesson. To start off with, characters are the people or people-like entities in a story. Characters do not have to be human, but they do have to be human-like in their behavior and their thinking and so on and so forth. Characters are a window to theme because of how they engage with problems in the story and how they change over the course of a story. They show us the topics and the author's attitude that make up theme. They are also a key to engaging readers. Books that have characters who are memorable and relatable are the ones that get talked about for centuries. These are the characters that people know whether they've read the book or not, and that's what makes a story interesting. Characters have different types and they fill different roles in stories, and they change over the course of the story. So the character you start out with may not be the same person they were when they started the story by the time they reach the end of it. Which means you need to know what character types are out there before you start planning your characters. First things first, all characters are either round or flat. That means round characters are well-developed, realistic, they have full-fledged personalities with varied interests, strengths and weaknesses, and a physical description. They're 3D in the sense that you could picture this person as a real-life person. On the other hand, flat characters only have one personality trait, like they might be shallow or vain or selfish, and they don't really grow or get any better throughout the course of the story, whereas a round character will change in response to what they face. Round characters are more engaging to readers than flat characters, so we want to make sure that most of our characters are round characters and that we only use a flat character to illustrate an idea that we want to warn the reader against. Round and flat characters also divide into main versus supporting characters, which is another two primary categories that all characters can fall into. Main characters are the primary person or group in the story that the story is all about. They control the narration and the point of view of the story. They get most of the attention in the story, and they make up our protagonists and our antagonists, which basically is our good guy versus our bad guy. Your protagonist is almost always your main character, and they're a good guy. The antagonist usually is an important character in the book, but they don't usually get to be the narrating point of view. Supporting characters, like the people who help main characters reach their goals. They're basically sidekicks. They might point things out and be a mentor or an assistant or something like that. But they are not main characters, they're secondary. All of your main characters and most of your supporting characters should be round characters. If you have a flat character, they should be something like a minion or a supporting character of some kind that's just there to briefly illustrate some quality that the main character needs to get over or acquire. And that brings us to characterization. Characterization is how you describe a character. And for right now, we're just going to focus on direct characterization, which is what you tell your reader your character is like, which means you need to include a physical description, what your character looks like, height, weight, hair color, hair type, build, eye color, skin color, birthmarks, freckles, etc. Anything that you can see on your character that would identify your character for who they are. You also need to give your character a personality. This is the type of person they are, their behavior and their character traits. Are they optimistic, pessimistic, sickly, happy, brave, strong, emotionally speaking? Do they have fears, hopes, dreams, etc.? What goes into the type of person they are? You need to describe their abilities. These are physical and mental talents, so maybe they're incredibly flexible or very strong. Perhaps they're psychic or they're super smart. All of these are things that your reader needs to know about your character. And you need to include their history. Who are your character's family and friends? What environment have they lived in? What have they endured and overcome in the past that brought them to the point that they are at? Some of these things you won't straight up say, Bobby Joe was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed young man with, well, whatever. You're not going to go through and say all of that. You'll imply it with interactions as you go through it. Same with their history. But these information needs to be included so that your reader has a good idea of who your character is. And that brings us to character development, because a character does change over the course of a novel. Who they start out as is not who they will be at the end. This is directly tied to conflict. Conflict happens because the character has to overcome a personal weakness, and this ties to the theme through the conflict because of how the character responds to the conflict and how they will change will show the author's attitude. So to sum up, characters populate stories. The more believable and human they are, the more fun they are to read about. And their development ties directly to conflict and from there to theme and shows us how they change over the course of the story.